Hey guys, this is Cole with 2-in-1 Transmissions. Today, follow along as I build a 48 high pressure valve body. This is the 3/4 accumulator housing for these. The Transgo kit modifies the way that oil flows through it. Basically turns it from a balanced accumulator to a static accumulator. Just gives better shift feel. You say it's full grown. Ever. We can paint a pretty picnic, but we can't predict the weather. Just making sure the valve's free, that's all. Wipe down because you probably moved a bunch of junk out of there, and drop them back in. It should bounce. What's that? These valves I'm not super worried about how well they seal, so I don't really vacuum check these. There's really no reason to. These valves aren't known for prematurely wearing. There's a few valves in the upper casting though that are known for pretty severe wear. Like the PR, the switch, the TV valve. We'll vacuum check those. This little guy is a governor blow off. Vents governor pressure. When it exceeds, Transgo says 92 PSI. Usually in the truck we'll see 105, 107. Depends on how healthy the pump is, obviously, but it kind of just goes truck by truck basis. But that stops runaway governor pressure from not only hurting the transducer, but also helps with longevity and shift quality. This is the 031. This should be the 035. Let's pop this valve in backwards first. Yep, you see that one's good. Make sure she'd move freely, and then install it the correct way. Good. Drilling this out, if you follow your passages, that leads back to your 3/4 quick fill. This gives governor oil to your 3/4 quick fill so that it can vent properly. That's why you have to put the heavier spring, because not only do you have oil coming in here, but now you'll have oil coming in here. So that spring has to be a lot heavier for it to supply proper pressure behind the overdrive piston before the overdrive piston is actually applied. It gives 5 to 7 pounds of oil pressure behind the 3/4 piston at all times, unless it's in overdrive, which at that point it'll have line pressure. It just keeps the back side of that piston full. Because it's a very large piston, it takes a while to fill it. So the engineers decided to implement a pre-fill system, but now that we're using it as a governor bleed, we have to change the spring as well. That's just allowing the switch valve to move faster into its position, which firms up lockup. You can knock off the other side of that plate and firm up lockup even more. Transgo, in their kit instructions, have you drill through the lower casting. I don't like doing that because lower castings are a lot more expensive than this plate. This plate's like 75 bucks, and lower castings, well, they don't make them anymore. So for me, it's a lot more feasible to do it that way. If it has the same result and you're not modifying something that is extremely difficult to unmodify. Because yeah, normally it has you drill a hole, 1 or 2 holes, but depending on how firm you want lockup. But on a stage 1, we'll knock that down. Stage 2 is we leave it alone because the triple is firm enough just on its own. Obviously, if the customer requests really firm lockup, then that's different. Cool. Yep, there's your filter. A potato flew around my room before you came. We don't make any modifications to the center casting. We leave that for like full manuals and stuff like that. These don't change via the Transgo kit. All right, guys, we'll talk about first gear lockup. And if I'm honest, it's completely unnecessary on anything other than a race application. Than a valve that gives you charge pressure at all times, where before, if you try and crank down the PR spring, you'd be cutting off your converter charge. But with that, you don't have that problem. No, don't fall. Thank you. When these are in first through third, they are not in what's called boosted line pressure. Whereas when the trans goes into overdrive or lockup, it vents oil off the PR valve. It vents the oil that's reducing line pressure. So you get increased line pressure. And this valve is responsible for allowing that oil to vent. And one of the main reasons why 47s won't make as much line pressure as 48s is the casting variances. And casting just flat out differences. In the 48s, the center casting allows the boost valve to vent oil off of 2 parts of the PR valve, giving you a lot more line pressure, whereas the 47 only vents oil off of 1 of them. That's why in a 48 you can get up to, with just a Transgo kit, we've seen as high as 190, 195. That's really pushing it. But 47s, you'll only see 175 max, really. That's good. The TV valves are really common for getting stuck. You don't service the trans, the TV valve, and PR valve. Really like to get sticky. But usually not servicing the trans comes up in the form of third gear starts, where the governor will stick. And it will feel like the trans is slipping. The trans isn't slipping. You're just in third gear instead of first. Whereas you drop it down into manual, if you drop it down into manual second or manual first, if at that point then it starts moving properly, then you have a problem with something in the governor circuit, electronically or hydraulically. But stuck governors are not uncommon, especially with lack of maintenance. That's good. Switch valve's worn out. Usually the trans go drop in TV valves. There goes my boost valve. I'm not super worried about, but this moves extremely freely. Seals up a lot better, which is good. Look, half the bore, it's like half the bore is worn. You can see where it starts wearing. So we get to ream this. Now this is the finishing. Okay. I get to free, be free. This thing seals up really good. There you go. You can fix that. $200,000s. All that really does is it shortens the path that fluid has to take. That's all I get to do.
It might be so sharp, I don't feel it.
You're gonna feel it.
I put safety wire through my thumb and then through my nail. And I went.
It's sticky. Newer stuff, they'll shift slow. 6R140s, they'll shift slow. Allisons will shift slow. ASNs will shift slow. That's how they survive. The way that these survive, well, because those have torque management. These don't have torque management. The way that these survive is they shift fast. You have to shift fast and shift hard. Because the slower it's shifting, the more it's slipping. Which, yeah, it makes it more smooth and comfortable, but you're allowing more time where the clutch isn't fully applied or the band isn't fully applied, which is slip. And the more slip you have, the more heat you have, and then that's your correct wear degradation. So the faster that we can get this sucker to shift, the better. These are just reamers that we have. They're not to oversize the bores. These reamers are actually a half a thou undersize. They just clean out any burrs. If there's anything that these valves can hang up on, they will. A little sticky just past where it's the end of its throw. Because obviously it'll wear the bore out where its throw usually is. Just past that. It's obviously not worn out, so it'll be a little sticky. So this section is normally in charge of your 3-2 kickdown. But the Transgo kit turns this from a 3-2 kickdown valve to a throttle pressure regulation system. Stock 48 valve bodies have a problem with runaway throttle pressure, which will cause inconsistent upshifts, inconsistent downshifts, sometimes no upshifts if it gets extremely excessive. So instead of that, now you have a TV pressure regulator, which keeps TV pressure under about 100 PSI, at or around 100 PSI max. And they do that by not only changing this spring, but also adding this plate and having you install a plug. TV. That little shim that I just installed stops a 232323 shuttle at very low throttle, which these are kind of common for, where pedal position will be in just the right spot where TV and governor pressure are kind of balanced, so the valve will shuttle back and forth, which is very uncomfortable when you're in the truck, because it's like the trans has no idea what it's doing. Really can't be too careful with these. Those love to strip out. It's an interesting sound.
It's fun to push.
There they are. That's very satisfying. And you'll notice the 2-3 shift valve is a lot harder to move than the 1-2. The 1-2 moves really easily. The 2-3 is a lot more difficult. Obviously, because the 2-3 shift needs to happen at a higher governor pressure. It's got to be a little more difficult to push that governor plug down. Now this valve is also called a boost valve. It's responsible for boosting line pressure in reverse. It also acts as a line reducing valve in certain scenarios. Install our PR valve. Cleaned out our switch valve, which this switch valve is not the same as on the 68s. All the 68s do have a problem with the solenoid switch valve. In these, the switch valve has a different operation. Now this, although it may seem pretty small, is a very important part of this kit.
I gotta work too.
It's lunchtime. These two shims are extremely important for the operation of this kit. In stock form, 48 valve bodies, they don't have converter charge in park. What this does is it changes where your PR spring sits from being on the valve to being on the casting. It basically forces the trans to have converter charge. In one way or another, it's going to have charge. This is the resting position, like if the truck is off. As soon as the truck turns on, as soon as the pump is moving and it's making line pressure, it will shuttle the PR valve into this position. Now you can see the outside spring is not moving at all. The inside spring is. Now the inside spring is extremely light, and all that's there for is when you shut the truck off, is for this PR valve to shuttle back, or else you'd have converter drain back and all the issues that come with that. You can see how right here, when I shuttle this valve, before it even starts to compress the orange spring, that you get a little bit of oil coming through there. That's a little bit of converter charge. Just a little bit before this even starts to move. And that is how you don't kill converters, because too little charge is bad. Way too much charge is bad. So you have to have just the right amount of charge is good. And so you're making 170 pounds of line, well, 135 pounds of line, you might have 110 pounds of converter charge. And then obviously the PR spring's a little stiffer, so you can get a little more pressure out of it. Main attitude. What I'm installing now is our governor and transducer. We always do new of both. Obviously, governor and transducer failures are extremely common on these 47, 48s. The valve body mods aim to fix that, or aim to stop that from happening. But another big reason for especially governor failure is improper servicing or improper hot flushing. Hot flushing is such an important thing on these governors, because there's a tiny valve inside of that governor that if any amount of debris gets inside of that valve, it will start destroying the valve and it will cause third gear starts. So we highly recommend to anybody who is installing a 48, whether it's ours or somebody else's, that it get professionally hot flushed. And I'm sorry, but a can of cooler clean is not a hot flush. A can of cooler clean just is not good enough to stop these things from getting stuck. I'm honestly just gonna make sure that that's super smooth, which is good. Usually if you can do it super easily like that, you're fine. Kind of put this where it should be relatively, and then we'll do the filter. These filters that we use are actually 727 filters. We don't like using the 48 RE filters. They will work perfectly fine. We've used them in hundreds of 48s, and they work perfectly fine. They honestly work better than the 48 filters, because the surface area of the filter that it can actually pull fluid from is so much larger than the 48 filter. You have a much larger area to catch material, and you have a much larger area to pull fluid from, instead of just a little opening, like I think it's here or something like that. But honestly, I haven't looked at one in forever, so we always just throw those things straight in the trash. These filters are just that much better. You do have to watch out though, because you can blow through these filters, because yeah, you kind of gotta be careful when you're torquing these to not like over torque the f out of them. So this one, because it's a stage 1, I don't really see a reason to put very much in terms of PR tension in it. Just put a turn in it, it should be fine. Stage 2 is do 2 turns, but 1 will just do 1. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see the entire build process of the transmission that valve body is going into, check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.